Good morning. This is HP Shalom. Today we're going to focus on bringing God's help into our lives, how He can make our lives better. We are not walking this planet alone. We may have family and friends, and there may be periods in our lives where family isn't available, or we no longer have them, or we don't currently have friends. But we always have God. So why don't we call in God like we've been doing, so He could be amongst us and we can be in His frequency as we tune in. So let's do that now. Fingertips together. For any new people on YouTube, there are teachings explaining all of this, and it's quite easy to catch up. So fingertips together, focus, inward, relax, deep breaths in and out. Just relax, be in the moment, let go of everything. Focus towards your center. And now reach out in God's name. Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. So I'm kind of being pensive, and I want to share important teachings today, and I'm praying that it comes out good. And it's important to be in alignment with Yahweh. Because we don't have to do things alone. We can ask for His guidance and presence and direction and strength and healing, courage, strength to hold on, strength to trust our instincts if they're grounded and proper. And He helps us to get a place where our instincts become increasingly more trustworthy and correct. The spiritual religious path, as I've been sharing, is one to increasingly become in greater alignment with ourselves, within the purity of who we can become in our perfection. Our perfection is that of Yahweh God that lives within us. The Spirit of God is within us. It animates us. It's in our world. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist. And as we tune into this, as we release things that are not of that vibration, we become increasingly in alignment with Yahweh. And then we increasingly become more and more worthy of being called His children, because we listen, we strive to do better, and we have a relationship of love and care that's built over time, and we mature in how we relate to God. So I've been looking at some of the questions and answers, and there are questions that are very complex about people's lives that I'm not really able to give an opinion about, because I don't understand people's individual circumstances, and it's hard to know what the right answer could be due to the complexity of situations. And I remember my teachers saying the same thing in the past, but we do have guidance, and questions were asked on how to connect with God to provide answers. So we've developed skills to better connect with God. So we have to understand that God's name is inscribed on our hearts. Our relationship with God should be our primary one. It's discussed throughout the Bible, Old and New Testaments. In my life, it's been God first. Our relationship with God should be the primary one. And if we're in a good relationship with God and we keep His ways, then naturally our other relationships, family, friends, siblings, are also good. Why is God's relationship first? Not everyone agrees with me on this, because God's guidance guides us on how to treat ourselves, our family, and our friends, on what to say and what not to say, on what to do, which others may disagree with. So let's say we have our partner as our primary relationship. He could be wrong, and you're listening to your partner as opposed to God, because God at that point is secondary. That's kind of divinely out of order, because God makes us, God animates us, God gives us life. It's not our partner. Our partner may give us emotional, romantic, makes our lives special, hopefully. But how do we manage that relationship? How are we good parents? What decisions do we make? So who do we call upon? Where do we get this source of knowledge? So you see what becomes the primary relationship. Because Yahweh is the source of all goodness and strength, so there's no problem putting Yahweh first, because to Yahweh children and parents and friends are important. But He provides guidance on what sort of friends, the extent of tolerance, where it becomes damaging or toxic to oneself, on creative solutions to challenging problems, which are not obvious, tough situations, painful situations. To whom do we turn? So in this society, people lack resources because in many ways this is a post-religious world. People who actually try to connect with God, even just at home. There are so many resources at home. There's me that comes into your home every Sunday if you decide to tune into the podcast. Right? There's others. There's Bibles. There's your prayer life. That is rare nowadays, that people have that inclination. It is a great source of strength to have it, because we know fundamentally we're not alone. God does make it better. It may not always be obvious. You may not always get what you ask for, but there is a relationship where you can ask. Asking for something is asking for an outward manifestation, which can occur. But at a more fundamental way, God is with us and He walks with us. And sometimes there are tough roads, because God very much left us to determine our destiny on this planet. But He also engages with us energetically, giving us strength and wisdom on how to resolve challenging situations. He may even help them clear up. But one must not despair. Sometimes their fixes are slow. That doesn't mean that He doesn't care, but there are so many interwoven connections on this planet. By doing a quick fix here causes a more bigger problem somewhere else, which we're not aware of. So we ask God for strength and guidance. And when one goes through hardships, He's there, and it helps. And you gain wisdom and strength to wait for the change. Like I've mentioned, nothing is permanent. Things are good, then things are bad, things are healthy, then they're sick. You know, young child, young, one day becomes old. This planet is full of fluctuations, and with God's guidance and love, we learn to navigate these waves. And then we find resources because we become on the frequency where we encounter resources, and God willing, they're good ones, and they help. We are not alone. All our family and friends may not be reliable at times. They may abandon us at times. But God never abandons us. He is always there with that outstretched hand, wanting a relationship with His children. And I know that the lack of one makes Him very sad. God gets a little bit of a bum rap. We make God out to be wrathful, not personable, distant. That's not the case. God helps, God feeds, God cares, God answers prayers. Passover is coming. It's the story of how God led the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery, through the desert to the promised land for 40 years. That is God caring for His people out of slavery, giving them His commandments, which is the covenant, God's promises to be with His people, and guiding His people through directions to the commandments, which shouldn't be considered a weight, but rather guidance on how to be in alignment. And how did they feed themselves? From manna, food from the heavens, which, when they tasted it, it tasted like the best food for individual people. So if somebody was really into fish, it tasted like fish. If they liked meat, it tasted like the best meat dish. Isn't that generous? We need to see how God's love is very prevalent. It is very much like I know what I want to say, but it might be a little too radical for some of you. So I'm going to pull it back. He could be your best friend. The best of friends. Because there's great compassion and understanding. So I've read some of the questions, and some people are going through very challenging times in situations which can be somewhat shocking and sad and challenging and not what we would want. With these teachings that I've presented since beginning of November, this sort of cycle of my teachings, we are increasingly able to connect with the frequency of God. And as we connect ever deeper, we are in ever closer relationship. And it's a very loving, caring relationship. How God treated the Hebrew people, guiding them, sending prophets to warn them, to help them, and in a way even discipline them for their own good so they could sort of wake up and come back to Him. Sometimes we need that wake up through adversity, that we're just off, so we can focus and reconnect. Many times people turn back to God in times of hardship, of trauma, of very scary times. And we reconnect and hopefully maintain that connection after those times pass. It can be a challenge. We shouldn't have anger to God, because we shouldn't take it personally. But then it could be personal. But it's nothing to blame, but rather to open our eyes, to investigate what is off, and to make those changes, and have gratitude that we see where we're off, and to make those changes, to take it in a positive way. Not harbor resentments, but to realize, hold on, how did I get here? How is this arising in my life? What changes, what decisions have I made that has led here? And it's not necessarily to have fault with oneself. It's just that we've entered a frequency that exposes us to certain things. You see? So in a way, it's almost not God doing it, but frequencies of a certain type bring certain similar frequencies into our lives. We associate it with bad people. Well, guess what? Those bad people do bad things to us, and it changes our lives. See? We have a higher frequency. We try to eat better, try to exercise to the extent we can, and then we have the benefits of that better food and better exercise. Clearer thinking, clearer minds. We pray, we avail ourselves to the divine God. Well, we have the benefits of that. We can have the protection of that. We can have the healing of that. Does that make sense? We bathe in a clean pool. We don't get sick, we get healthy, right? We bathe in a salt pool. Well, that clears our body, clears our bones, clears our frequencies, and it has a deep healing effect, which is different when we swim in chlorine. Right? Chlorine sometimes has chemicals which could damage what the color of our bathing suits and makes our skin more dry. Salt doesn't have that. So there's different qualities of everything. See? If we swim in a polluted pool, we can get really sick. You know, once I was in an apartment complex and there was massive storms. This is California, over 2 years ago, where it hadn't rained really in 5 or 6 years. And it overflew the pool, and above the pool there was grass. So everything in the grass flooded into the pool. Years of God knows what was doing God knows what on that grass. Fertilizer, bug killer, little animals needing to go to the bathroom, birds doing God knows what, right? It all flooded into the pool. The pool went from pristine to thick green color, murky. You cannot believe this, but people swam in it. They were drawn to it. They didn't think, this is the most toxic water I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God. They were drawn and they swam in it. I had heard some of them said it resembled the water where they grew up, and therefore they jumped in. And all the health consequences, which I'm sure they received, there's just no way it could have been anywhere else, any other way, they got them, more than likely. What are we drawn to? What wisdom do we have to say, you know what, I could wait a couple days until the pool man sanitizes this cesspool? Or are we drawn to those circumstances? Then do we blame God for getting ill? Right? God gets a lot of blame for things that really aren't his fault. We fell from his vibration. So while we're here, do we try to increase our vibration, to get closer to him, to grow in wisdom, where we realize some of the cesspool that exists in our society, in our culture, we don't necessarily need to indulge in. And we can focus on healthier aspects in our society, in our culture, in our entertainment, to engender a healthier living, healthier mind, healthier relationships, to avoid pitfalls and illness, to being drawn to different toxic cesspools. Pure vibrations are very rare on this planet. But if we could find ways to tap into them, they uplift us. We know we change. As people have been doing the practices I've been suggesting, they've noticed sometimes things fall apart. Why do sometimes problems come up when one does certain practices? Because things we've been in just were being maintained in an unhealthy way, and realignments occur to free up healthy space and healthy ground from which new and better life may spring. But sometimes it could be a painful road when one goes through this metamorphosis. Right? So a traditional analogy would be a silkworm, right? Who makes its cocoon, right? Cocoon, as it changes into a butterfly. Beautiful butterfly. Butterflies start as larvae. I think they grow in the leaves. They eat leaves. It's a little bit, I don't know, look it up. It has little feet. It eats the leaves. Looks nothing like a butterfly. Then it weaves a silk cocoon around itself for a while. And then it changes into something that does not even begin to resemble what it once was. And then it sprouts into this most beautiful butterfly of gorgeous colors, from something that looked a little bit like a kind of sluggy in a way, but more beautiful than that. And it could have beautiful colors, browns, and just beautiful, beautiful animals before, but very completely different as a butterfly, which can fly, which is light, which brings such beauty and wonder to those who see it. Very different vibration. When we enter into religion, we enter into a transformation. And if one isn't religious, when one enters a spiritual walk, we transform. We all transform. Yes? We start going into that cocoon where we change, and sometimes change could be a little painful. Sometimes truths have to be uttered, which can cause pain, for healing to come out. And sometimes there's wisdom in not necessarily speaking all one's truth, because it might make us feel better, but it might just hurt other people, and there's really no end benefit to it other than we feel we're unburdened. But have we placed a burden on others? Sometimes we just need to have forgiveness of ourselves and of God and promise to do better and say, I really, let me just say it, fucked up here. I really messed that one up. But you know what? If I reveal that to that person, what good does that do? There's wisdom. All secrets revealed, necessarily does it mean you need to reveal that? But rather what's important, are you able to try to fix it, make amends, and not do it again? But if there are things that need to be revealed to fix things, that an apology and ownership of what you've done is necessary, then maybe you need to do that and be open to the consequences of that secret. Or, like some of the emails, put your foot down and have to deal with those consequences, because what's going on is just not right. And to have the courage of just saying no. But then, if those consequences are horrendous, then maybe it's a period where one has to endure. I can't advise to that. But I can give helpful tips. There's been periods in my life that I've just have to rely on my instincts and on God, which sometimes was a louder or very feeble voice, depending. And one contemplates what one has to decide. One sort of chews on it. You think about it, you put it out of your mind, you go to the gym, you think about it some more. If you have a trusted friend, you ask for advice, right? You have a trusted priest, trusted rabbi. But ultimately, we have the decision to make. And ultimately, the burdens we carry are not ours alone, but they're ours with God. See, this is a big, big difference than non-deistic religions. They have no one to rely upon. We can turn to God, find comfort and guidance, and in our prayers, we might just suddenly wake up in the middle of the night with a whole different way of perceiving it, which makes so much sense, right? Haven't we all had that aha moment? It was always there, but we didn't see it. Well, that's wisdom from a different frequency. And it just changes how we perceive the whole situation, and the solution just is so clear. The cleaner we are, the more in alignment we are, the clearer decisions are. Because we're less in the muck of conflicting thoughts, emotions, different desires, some good, some bad, and we're just pulled in so many different directions. When we increase our vibration, we're increasingly pulled to higher and higher frequencies, and we let go of the muck. We go from the Pinto to the four-wheel drive truck to the beautiful little sports car. I'm partial to sports cars. Not that I get to drive them often, but, even a good Ford, just wonderful. And then we're on airplanes, just cruising along. And things somehow are easier. But you know what? We've gone through the muck of the Ford. We've gone through the bumps of the truck. But then the truck helped us get through bumpy roads that a Ford couldn't. And we're rugged and we're able to transverse it better, right? And then the path becomes easier. And the truck isn't so much necessary because now we're in a super fast freeway where super fast cars just glide along, right? But there's a path, and walk it slowly as one transforms. Take your time. Don't become overwhelmed. Take breaks. Go slowly. Just the other day, somebody wanted to do something, and they'd be like, I'm going to do it straight for 2 hours. I'm like, do you want to become manic? That is a lot, even for me. With the particular mantra, I'm like, I would need to go slower than that to build up to that. In their wisdom, they decided to do it for 5 minutes. Very wise. Why? Because once you see how that is, or 2 minutes, or 30 seconds, and when in a couple of days you see the result, and then, right, then you go a little longer. Right? And then if you feel overwhelmed, you pull back. You just lie there in appreciation. Only you can judge your own path. I merely offer the tools. And you go slowly. If you need therapy, or you realize you're chronically depressed, or the things that come up make you depressed, then please get the medication for that to help smooth it out. Right? So through the medication, you're upgrading your Pinto where you feel everything's falling apart, and suddenly you're in a Ford, because the medication heals the Pinto into a Ford. And then you go in strength and you grow, and then you realize you can let go of the pills, and then you are the Ford. But you wouldn't have been able to do that without the help, that stability, without that therapy, without that massage or acupuncture. You bring in everything into this transformation. But there's something that could really, really help as well. So it's less painful. And that's also our relationship with God that we're going through. That we inscribe God in our hearts. So His frequency lives with us. So that pain or challenges which seemed insurmountable, another word for non-native English speakers would be pain or problems which just would seem very hard to overcome, suddenly overnight just disappear, and you're like, whoa, where did it go? I thought this would happen. I was 100% certain, and just poof. And that's the blessing. Or the solution appears, and you know, and you do, and then it's over relatively quickly. We don't have to go the long way around. You understand? God gives blessings for a quicker road through adversity. Or even if the road is long, we've deepened in our path with God, so when things are easier, we're that much stronger. I went through adversity for many years. I dedicated myself to learning during these many years. And my life was really fabulous, though very challenging and at times painful. But look where I am now. I'm able to share. If I hadn't focused on my relationship with the divine, I wouldn't be able to teach. I wouldn't have the knowledge. I found opportunity and strength in things that would normally cripple others. And it fostered change and growth. So on the other side, there's greater beauty and ability, and I've transformed. Yahweh, the name of God of the Old Testament, needs to be inscribed on our hearts. That primary relationship. That is the name of God of the Old Testament. All 72 names derive from His. If you go to a Bible that's an actual literal translation, it has the name Yahweh, where God or any other name is placed. That is the ground zero. This is a very profound teaching I'm giving here. Very rare. People are afraid to say His name from certain traditions. That's okay. You don't have to say it out loud, but you could say it inside. That's permitted in those traditions, some of them, depending on how one feels about it. You can say it in a whisper within yourself. It could be the name inscribed in your heart of hearts inside, as that deep connection with God, which is Yahweh. Those letters YHWH, all caps, is pronounced Yahweh. Okay. YAHWEH. In that relationship, we find our deliverance, we find our guidance, we find our blessing. All the other names of God are attributes, titles of Yahweh. They can be paths, frequencies that help us guide us to that core. Our prayers are to lead us to a connection to the Creator. The guidance on what to do. Some of the emails I've received are just, I pray that they resolve properly very difficult situations. It's an opportunity for people to find a source of wisdom and guidance, or maybe some comfort, or at least somebody to cry out to. Yahweh, hear me. Yahweh, guide me. Yahweh, be with me. These are very, very beautiful prayers. And not necessarily be resentful if one doesn't immediately hear back, but just trust that God sees the situation. And then a profound other teaching is just saying Shalom. Yahweh Shalom. That we just trust in the Shalom, the peace of God, that somehow it's in His keeping. It's a declaration of utmost faith that one grows towards with time, where you just trust wherever it goes, it's as God wills it. Great devotion there, that it's everything is as God wills it to be. Shalom. It takes time. We can rest in the peace as we surmount and go through great difficulties. Our connection is our truth. It's our light. It's our being. It's our deliverance. And we learn how to pray when we're called back to Him, and often it's at times of difficulties. But then when things get better, let's learn to stay with Him. People turn to God when things are challenging, but where are we when things are good? We ask for help and charity and guidance, but where are we to guide others and share our bounty when good things are good with us? But yet, when we need them, we're like, where's our help? But were we helpful when others needed it? We learn to get into a proper balance, which increases us to a more divine frequency. Ever closer relationship to what's good and pure in this planet, which blesses us and our families and friends in return. We are in ever closer communion, and whatever may happen here, we know we return to Yahweh, where we came from. And there's a great consolation in that we know, even when we're still alive, where we're going after death, because we've entered that zone where it's assured. And we hear God's voice guiding us. And yes, it is possible. We feel and have grown confidence in our instincts, and they've proven to be correct because we've cleared our minds of bad intentions, bad motivations, and we're walking a path of alignment, which takes time. Have patience, and in that frequency, things are clearer. For all the emails I have received, I pray that Yahweh may be with you all, provide guidance and peace to do what is right and correct in His way. Amen and Shalom. There's one email in particular I would like to share. So let me just check my notes on what I just said. Sometimes when it's important, I put in a couple, 5 or 6 sentences to make sure I touch on certain things. Yeah. So on your path of life, be guided by your prayers and your practice. And Shalom is another way of saying rest in God. And it's sort of like offering it up to Him. And trust. Trust that it's handled or seen. And ultimately, it could bring a very great peace to ourselves even should the situation not particularly shift. So turn to God for clarity and see what comes up within you with the result of those prayers. You know, sometimes answering of prayers just is mainly a change of perspective, different thoughts, different ways of seeing, or you come to a conclusion, and because of your prayers, you pray that that conclusion on what to do is blessed and correct. And that's sort of a trust in your prayers. And with time, you begin to realize those instincts become ever and ever purer and more trustworthy. Or suddenly it breaks through and it is a pure thing that kind of parts the skies in your mind, and it was the right thing to do, and that was a true blessing from God. But just be careful, not all of our thoughts or inclinations really are pure. They come from habitual ideas and reactions from our subconscious mind, from thoughts that aren't proper, or energies of things that happened to us from way back when we don't remember in our youth, and they still motivate us, sadly, to today. So we can only do the best we can, but analyze your instincts. That's why we use our minds. Think it through, study, learn. Connect with Yahweh. He is the source of all the names. That's the core. That's our golden link. Pray. Ask for guidance. Ask for blessings. Ask for healing. Pray with gratitude. Thank you for this nice day. You know what, God? This day was really shitty. Yes, you could have that kind of conversation. Let's just be real. Today was really shitty. But when I was on the way to the gym and I saw that grass, I felt just calm and beauty in your perfection. And thank you for those 10 seconds of feeling that. I see what's possible. Please, thank you. That really healed me. It helped me be that much better for the day. And I was able to take that energy and it uplifted me. I felt your presence then. Thank you so much for that. Or thank you for the bed that I'm going in, that I may feel calm and peaceful even though it's so crazy at work right now. Please help me, please guide me, and thank you for being in my life. It's important to have a relationship of thanks. We just don't always take. I was in the course and everybody spoke about prayer, about asking, wanting, desire. I was just so sad. I wanted to disconnect, to be honest. It was a lot. And I'm like, they're so lost. It's an exchange of gratitude, of love, of connection, and also bringing forth where there's real problems. But it's a full relationship. It's not a succubus relationship. And do what's healthy for you. And be wise about it. Sometimes it's not always the best time to act. Sometimes you have to wait. Or sometimes you don't do fully what you want to do, partially, see how it is, and then you'd go a little more, or you have to relate in your wisdom. So if I don't respond to your questions, it's because an outside person really can't give guidance to certain things. My guidance is you have to turn to Yahweh, to God. Make Him the primary source of your relationship, the lens through which you perceive your life. The lens, like a lens and glasses, right? So let Him be the glasses through which you view your life, eliminating distortions, providing clarity and insight and light. Different perspectives. There's the eyes, and then we have the lens, the glasses or the contacts to bring clarity and better choices, because we're better able to see where we are. I hope that Yahweh's blessing rests with you all. May His name forever be inscribed on our hearts, on our minds, and on our alignments. And because we live with God, because we pray to Him, we're able to ask for His blessings. And so we ask for God's blessings in everything we do, in everything we hear, in our thoughts, in our guidance, in our actions, in what we engage with our friends, our family, online apps. May God just be with us. May Yahweh be with us 24/7, 365 days a week, in everything we do and we think and we feel. Amen and Shalom. Thank you so much for joining me.